Parents said, we took 90% of your savings for your sister's home. I laughed because they hit the wrong account. I've got $10 million in an offshore account. Blocked. It all started on a perfectly normal Sunday. My mom, Hannah, insisted on one of her infamous family suppers. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag. Dad, usually so jovial, was carving the roast with this weird, robotic precision, and my older sister, Lauren, she's 4 years my senior, always had to remind me, was glued to her phone, barely picking at her food. Her husband, Brooks, was just there as always, contributing absolutely nothing to the conversation. Then, Mom set down her wine glass with this incredibly deliberate click. So, dear, she began, her voice taking on that sickly sweet tone that always meant bad news for me. We need to talk about something important. My stomach immediately seized up. Nothing good ever followed that sentence. Dad cleared his throat, finally looking up. Your sister and Brooks found their dream home. It's in Willow Creek, a new development by the country club. 4 bedrooms, gorgeous backyard for the kids they plan to have. That's amazing! I genuinely exclaimed. Seriously, despite our complicated history, I was happy for them. Congratulations. Lauren's smile, though, had this sharp, almost smug edge to it that I just couldn't place. Thank you, little sister, she purred. It's been a stressful process, but we got it. And then, the other shoe dropped. Mom continued, her voice still unnervingly calm. The thing is, the down payment was significant. It exceeded their savings. My fork, halfway to my mouth, froze. Okay, I thought. Here it comes. Dad couldn't even meet my eyes. We tapped into your savings account to help them out. The one we set up for you when you were 17. We've been managing it all these years, remember? The roast suddenly tasted like cardboard in my mouth. My own savings? The one account I thought was safe? How much did you take? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though inside, a storm was brewing. 90%, Mom blurted out, as if rushing the words would somehow lessen the blow. But sweetie, you're only 29. You have plenty of time to save again. Lauren is 33. Her biological clock is ticking. They needed this house now. The whole room seemed to tilt. That account wasn't just some forgotten stash. It was funded by every birthday card from my grandparents, every check, every single penny from my teenage jobs at the bookstore and the ice cream parlor. I'd watched it grow through college, adding what I could from scholarships and summer internships. It was my security, my future. You stole my money without even asking me, I said, the words feeling foreign yet solid. Dad finally looked at me, a defensive fire in his eyes. We're your parents. We have access to that account for a reason. Our names are still on it as custodians. Lauren leaned back in her chair, inspecting her freshly manicured nails, utterly unconcerned. Don't be so dramatic, Abigail. So you don't have a penny to your name right now. You'll recover. You were always so good at pinching pennies. Her laugh was like a melodic, mocking chime. Besides, what were you even saving for? It's not like you have a partner or any wedding plans in the works. Brooks chuckled, burying his face in his napkin. Something cold and heavy settled in my chest. Then, I started to laugh. It wasn't a polite chuckle, it was a deep, guttural, side-splitting laugh. They stared, confused, maybe a little alarmed. Mom's face wrinkled with concern. Abigail, honey, are you okay? I'm perfect. I gasped, wiping tears from my eyes. You squandered 90% of my savings. That's just wonderful. Lauren's eyes narrowed. Why are you laughing like a crazy person? Because, I explained, still giggling through the tears, you looted that account. I purposefully kept a small amount of money in there, about $18,000 total. For the past 7 years, I've moved everything above that amount into other accounts. The silence that followed was glorious. Dad's face went pale. What do you mean, other accounts? I mean, I'm not stupid, I stated, the bitterness finally surfacing. You've always preferred Lauren. When she needed a car for college, you bought her a brand new Honda. I got nothing and had to save for my own used Toyota. You covered the cost of her international education, but told me that summer program in New York was too pricey. I saw the pattern. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. That's not fair. We've always loved you both equally. Perhaps you love us equally, I shot back, but you have never treated us equally. So, 7 years ago, when I started my first professional job after college, I opened accounts you have no idea about. A high-yield savings account at another bank, investment accounts, a Roth IRA. I've been contributing religiously to them, while leaving the old account with just enough to appear legitimate. Lauren's face turned beet red. You're lying, she accused. Check out my bedroom. You won't find any statements because everything is paperless and goes to an email address you don't know. I paused, letting the implication hang in the air. I learned early to keep my most precious possessions hidden from this family. Brooks finally piped up. How much are we talking about? None of your damn business, I said, perhaps a little too politely. But far more than the $18,000 you recently stole from me. Consider the money you took as the cost of discovering where I stand with all of you. Dad rose abruptly. Now wait a minute. We did not steal anything. That account has our names on it. Then I'll contact my attorney, Michael Hayes, tomorrow, I challenged. In case you want to check him up. He's been guiding me for the past 3 years since I started really establishing my financial portfolio. I stood, neatly folding my napkin beside my plate. He'll be quite curious to learn about this. You have an attorney? Mom's voice crackled, laced with disbelief. Why do you need a lawyer? For circumstances just like this one, I replied, grabbing my purse. For defending myself from family members who regard me as an ATM for their golden child. Thank you for dinner, I said, a brittle politeness in my voice. And congratulations on the house, Lauren. I hope it fulfills all of your expectations. Where are you going? Dad demanded. Home, I said, heading for the door. To my flat, which I pay for entirely on my own. Unlike some people, I don't rely on my parents for financial support. Lauren shot to her feet, her face contorted. You're ungrateful after all Mom and Dad have done for you. For example, what, specifically? I asked, turning to face her completely. What have they done for me that they haven't already done for you? I'm sincerely asking, because from where I stand, I've been paying my own way since I was 19 while they poured money into yours. The question hung unanswered in the air. That's what I thought. I walked toward the door. Mom followed me into the hallway, her voice pleading. Abigail, please don't leave like this. We can discuss this. No, I said, shaking my head. I don't believe we can. You made a decision without me. You've chosen Lauren over me again. The only difference this time was that I didn't get wounded because I protected myself. My hand found the doorknob. Do you know what the saddest part is? I'm not even surprised. I'm only disappointed because I still had enough faith in this family to be disappointed. We'll return the money, Dad murmured from behind her. We'll make it right. Don't bother, I said, my voice flat. Keep it. Consider this my final contribution to Lauren's beautiful life. But remember that this is the final time you'll be able to select her over me, because I'm eliminating you from that option. I drove home with blurry vision, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. My phone started ringing before I even got to my flat. I declined calls from Mom, Dad, and Lauren. By the time I parked, I had 21 missed calls. Inside my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. The accounts I mentioned? They were very real. My Meridian Bank savings account held $92,000. My brokerage account had an additional $52,000 invested in index funds. My Roth IRA was steadily growing. I'd been living below my means for years, driving the same used Toyota, cooking at home, skipping luxury trips, all while my family probably thought I was struggling because I didn't ask for help. My phone chimed. It was Lauren. Mom is crying. Are you happy right now? I typed back, I'm not happy or sad. I'm just finished. Another text. You are always selfish. This is classic Abigail, making everything about herself. The irony was so thick it could be cut with a knife. I blocked her number. Over the next week, the calls continued. Mom sent voicemails imploring me to attend family therapy. Dad sent emails about dealing with this as a family. Lauren alternated between apologetic texts from Brooks's phone and angry ones from her own. I ignored every single one. I called Michael Hayes. They had legal access to the account, he acknowledged after analyzing the papers. But we can make their lives difficult if you pursue this. The court of public opinion might be interested in parents who depleted their daughter's money. No, I decided. It's not worth it. I just want to make sure they never have access to anything of mine again. Can we do that? Absolutely, he assured me. I'll write a cease and desist. Plus, we'll set up credit alerts. If somebody tries to open an account in your name, you'll be notified within 7 days. My parents received formal legal warnings that any additional access to my financial accounts would be considered theft and prosecuted appropriately. The letter also ordered that they withdraw themselves as custodians of the original account and transfer the remaining cash to an account solely in my name. Dad called from an unknown number, bypassing my blocks. A lawyer? Abigail? Really? You're threatening your parents with legal action. You stole from me, I said, my voice flat. What were you expecting? We did not steal. We borrowed for your sister's future. Without my approval, I finished. That is theft, Dad. Dress it up however you like. When did you get so cold? He asked, a plaintive note in his voice. The question made me laugh, a bitter, stinging sound. I became this way after years of watching you prefer Lauren over me, while trying not to notice. I got this way when I understood that I had no choice but to protect myself because my own family wouldn't. He hung up. For weeks after that dinner, Lauren visited my workplace. Security phoned before letting her up, and I actually debated refusing. But curiosity and maybe a sliver of hope won. She looked exhausted, her makeup barely disguising the dark circles under her eyes. We need to talk, she said. I'm working, I replied, not softening. Abigail, please. 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I led her to a conference room. What do you want, Lauren? I'm sorry, she started, her voice raspy. I was terrible at that dinner. The things I said about you not having anyone and not having any money left were nasty. It was honest, I cut in. You've always thought less of me. She flinched. That isn't true, isn't it? I challenged. You've spent our entire lives enjoying everything Mom and Dad gave you, while looking down on me because I had less. You've commented on my car, my apartment, my clothes. You've introduced me to your friends as my younger sister who's still finding things out, despite my excellent profession in data analysis. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, I interrupted. You meant all of it, just as you meant it when you grabbed my savings without thinking twice. It was Mom and Dad's decision, not mine, she insisted. But you gained from it, and then humiliated me for it. You stood in their dining room, laughing at me because I was broke. I crossed my arms. Now that you know I'm not broke, you want to apologize? That's not remorse, Lauren. That's embarrassment. Her jaw stiffened. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I'm humiliated. Brooks's father wanted to know where we got the down payment. When Brooks told him, Mr. Thorne lost his mind. He called it entitled and inappropriate. He barely speaks to us anymore. So you're here because your father-in-law thinks you're pampered, rather than because you feel awful about what you did to me, I concluded. I feel awful, she insisted. No, I countered, you're upset about the consequences. There's a distinction. I stood. We're done here. Go home and enjoy your ideal abode. But we're done pretending to be sisters who care about one another. Abigail, you can't mean that. We're family. Families don't steal from each other. Family members don't mock each other's grief. Whatever we are, it is not family in any meaningful way. I opened the meeting room door. Goodbye, Lauren. She left in tears. I returned to my work, trying to focus on spreadsheets, but my hands shook for an hour afterwards. That evening, Aunt Susan called. Mom's oldest sister, she had always been the family's truth teller, saying what everyone else avoided. Your mother told me what happened, she stated without preamble. I told her she's an idiot. Despite everything, I grinned. Thanks, Aunt Susan. I'm serious. I've been watching her daughter Lauren for 30 years, expecting you to manage everything on your own. It's been infuriating from the outside, and I can't imagine living through it. It has been a journey, I admitted. Hannah contacted me crying, claiming you had cut them all off, and she didn't understand why, Aunt Susan snorted. I told her exactly why. I informed her that she has spent your entire life making you feel inferior, and she's now surprised that you've protected yourself from her. Aunt Susan sighed. She didn't want to hear it. She never does. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Setting up those other accounts, protecting your possessions, and standing up for yourself, that takes strength. You've always had to be the strong one, because no one else will be strong for you. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Something broke open in my chest, and for the first time since that terrible dinner, I found myself in tears. I'm so tired of being strong, I whispered. I understand, dear. I understand. We spoke for another hour. She told me about her own experiences with Mom, the favoritism she saw growing up, the unhealthy traditions passed down through generations. It helped to know I wasn't crazy or overly sensitive. Over the next few months, work became my haven. I immersed myself in a huge project, researching customer data trends for a retail chain, often working late into the evening. Rachel, my colleague, noticed. She noticed I was still at my desk at 8:30 p.m., which wasn't like me. Is everything okay? She asked. I said something vague about family, the kind that makes you avoid returning home, and the kind that makes me glad I have my own home to return to. She sat on the edge of my desk. My sister stole my identity when I was 26. Opened credit cards, ran up debt, ruined my credit score. I didn't speak with her for 8 years. Have you ever reconciled? I asked. Eventually, but it took her reaching rock bottom and going through extensive therapy before I could trust her again. Some family betrayals aren't only about money or what they stole. They're about what the taking reveals about how they perceive you. Her words stayed with me. The project I was working on ended in mid-October, for months after the upheaval. Our team successfully identified purchase habits that could save the client millions annually. My manager, Moore, called me into her office the day we submitted our findings. Exceptional work on this, Abigail, she said, motioning for me to sit. The client directly referred to your analysis in their remarks. They were incredibly impressed by the depth and clarity. Thank you, I said. It was a collective effort. Don't belittle your participation, Moore said, leaning forward. You led the statistical modeling section, and it was flawless. I'm recommending you for a senior analyst position. It includes a significant salary increase and increased project selection autonomy. The promotion felt like validation exactly when I needed it. My family saw me as someone to be used and discarded, but my professional life acknowledged my true worth. I agreed immediately. By May, the promotion was formalized with a 15% raise, deposited directly into my investment accounts. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant I'd been meaning to try. Sitting alone at a small, single table, I raised a glass of wine to myself. There was no family to share the achievement with, but no one to diminish it or make it about someone else. My phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. Despite my better judgment, I opened it. Hello, Abigail. This is Lauren. I got your new phone number from Aunt Susan. Please don't be mad at her, I begged. I realize you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to understand something. Brooks and I have already run into financial difficulties with the house we purchased. The property taxes were higher than expected, and the HA fees are crushing us. Mom and Dad will no longer help because of you. I'm not sure what you said to them, but they have completely changed. Brooks is infuriated. This is destroying my marriage. I hope you're satisfied. I stared at the message, anger coiling in my gut. Even now, despite everything, she blamed me. Not herself for accepting stolen money, not our parents for giving it. Me, for having the audacity to defend myself and establish boundaries. I typed and deleted 4 different responses before settling on the simplest, delete this number. Then I blocked her and called Aunt Susan. I didn't give her your phone number, she said immediately after answering. She saw it on my phone when I wasn't looking and memorized it. I'm so sorry, honey. It's fine. I blocked her, I said, taking a breath. She claims that Mom and Dad won't help them with their mortgage payments. Is this true? It is, Aunt Susan confirmed. Your father insisted that they handle their own financial responsibilities. Your mother wanted to help, but he persuaded her that it would only enable Lauren further. Wow, I breathed. I never thought I'd see this day. People can surprise you, Aunt Susan said. They do grow, albeit not always in a pleasant way. She paused. How are you really doing, Abigail? Beyond the surface level. The question took me off guard. Nobody had asked me that in a truly caring way since this whole mess began. Even my own concern had been about logistics and protection, not emotional processing. I'm not sure, I admitted. Some days I get angry. Some days I'm sad because I've lost a family that I never really had. Some days I feel free and relieved. It changes hourly. That's normal, she said gently. Grieving is not a linear process. And what you are feeling is grief. Grieving for the family you deserved, the relationships that could have been, and the parents who should have protected rather than exploited you. Tears welled in my eyes. I keep wondering if I'm being too harsh and whether I should give them another chance. Would you like to give them another chance? She asked. No, I confessed. But I feel guilty about not wanting to. Then you've got your answer, Aunt Susan said. Guilt is simply their programming still running in your head. You can acknowledge it and move on without taking any action. Her voice softened. Abigail, you deserve to prioritize your own healing. You have spent your entire life prioritizing everyone else. We talked for another hour, her wisdom and perspective helping me untangle the maze of emotions I'd been carrying. By the time we hung up, I felt more confident in my decision. December arrived with early snowfall. I started seeing a therapist myself, a woman named Dr. Elaine, who specialized in family trauma and estrangement. During our first session, I told the entire story, years of favoritism, stolen savings, and the aftermath. What do you want out of these sessions? She asked when I finished. I want to stop feeling guilty about protecting myself. I'd like to know why I keep questioning whether I did the right thing when I know I did. Those are good goals, she smiled gently. Let's start with a question. What would you say if a friend told you this exact story? That they were justified in cutting off contact, I replied. That their family betrayed them. That they don't owe their abusers anything. But you can't show the same compassion to yourself. Apparently not, I admitted. Dr. Elaine smiled. That's what we'll work on. Learning to treat yourself with the same kindness you'd show others. Learning that setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's self-preservation. Over the following weeks, therapy became another anchor point. I started understanding the dynamics that had shaped my childhood. How golden child/scapegoat patterns develop. How parents unconsciously recreate their own family traumas. How children learn to accommodate dysfunction to survive. Months passed. I changed my phone number again, only giving it to people I actually wanted to hear from. I skipped Thanksgiving, telling Aunt Susan I was traveling for work. Christmas came and went with me serving at a soup kitchen instead of enduring awkward family gatherings. My bank accounts continued to expand. In July, I got another promotion at work, this time to lead analyst, heading a team of 4 junior analysts. The added responsibility came with another raise that I quickly divided between savings and investments. The previous me would have felt guilty about having money while shutting off my family. The new me recognized that shame as a tactic they'd used to control me. In March, about 8 months after that tragic supper, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter from my father. Dear Abigail, I've begun this letter a dozen times and thrown away each attempt. Your mother feels I shouldn't bother, that you've made your opinion obvious. But I am your father and I have to say something, even if you never respond. You were correct about everything. I've spent the last 8 months examining our family finances, going over every decision we made for you and your sister. The evidence is damning. We paid for Lauren's car, study abroad, wedding, and honeymoon. When she and Brooks ran into financial difficulties 3 years ago, we helped her with the down payment on her first apartment. We paid up her credit cards. For you, we thought we were generous when we handed you a used laptop for your college graduation. I convinced myself we were assisting Lauren because she needed it more, because she struggled more. But this was not true. Lauren struggled because we allowed her to never learn financial responsibility. You prospered because we forced you to sort things out on your own. We did not make you strong. You were powerful despite, not because of us. Taking your savings was the last straw in a lifetime of favoring your sister over you. I understand why you cannot forgive us. I am not writing to ask for forgiveness. I'm writing to say that you deserve better from us, and I apologize for failing you. Your mother is battling with this. She interprets it as you rejecting the family over money. I've tried to explain that it's about respect, trust, and love, but she's not ready to listen. Lauren and Brooks are struggling with their mortgage. The house payment is higher than expected, and they're behind on several expenses. A part of me wants to aid them. The other part understands that helping would demonstrate that I learned nothing from losing you. I've decided not to help them this time. It hurts, but it also feels necessary. I do not expect you to respond to this letter. I do not expect anything from you anymore. I simply wanted to let you know that I understand what we did. I understand why you left, and I apologize. Love, Dad. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my cheeks. It didn't solve anything. Words on paper couldn't erase years of favoritism and the ultimate betrayal of taking my money. But something in me relaxed somewhat. A knot I'd been carrying that allowed me to breathe a little easier. I didn't respond to the letter. Instead, I put it in a drawer and carried on with my life. Spring came with surprising warmth. I began seeing someone I met through Rachel's acquaintance, a software engineer named Bennett, who was unaware of my family issues and didn't press me when I kept details vague. We took it slow, enjoying casual discussions and Sunday morning brunches. I ran into Brooks at the farmer's market on a Saturday in May. He looked worse than Lauren did at my office, with rumpled clothes and several days of stubble. Abigail, he murmured, visibly surprised. Hey, Brooks, I said, maintaining a neutral tone while inspecting organic tomatoes. How have you been? He laughed sharply, without humor. Honestly? Horrible. Lauren and I are probably getting divorced. I looked up at him. I'm sad to hear that. Are you? He scoffed. Your folks have cut us off financially. Lauren begged your father for help with the mortgage, and he declined. He's never said no to her before. Brooks ran his fingers through his greasy hair. We're 4 months behind. The bank is threatening to foreclose. That is unfortunate. That's all you have to say? Your sister is losing her home. The house you purchased with stolen funds, I reminded him, picking 3 tomatoes and moving to the next stall. What about that house? He followed me. Come on, Abigail. You're aware that your parents made that decision. Lauren didn't force them. No, she took the money without asking, and then criticized me for being broke. Let's not rewrite history. Brooks, we need assistance. Your dad indicated that you have money saved. I came to a complete halt and turned to face him. Allow me to be quite clear. I would rather burn my money than give you or my sister a single cent. You both made decisions that indicated exactly who you are. Live with the consequences. Jesus. When did you become so heartless? He spat. Around the time my family stole from me and joked about it, I said, a bitter smile playing on my lips. It's interesting how that affects people. I paid for my vegetables and walked away, leaving him standing among the produce stands. My hands shook as I piled groceries into my car, adrenaline coursing through me. A part of me felt guilty, the old Abigail who had been trained to sacrifice herself for family harmony. But a larger part felt vindicated. They had made their bed with my stolen savings. They could lie in it. That evening, Mom called from another new number. I almost didn't answer. When I picked up, she said, I know you don't want to talk to me, but please listen for 1 minute. I said nothing, and she interpreted that as consent. Lauren is losing everything. Her home, her marriage, her stability. She's my daughter, Abigail. I can't just watch her fall apart. But you watched me suffer alone for years, I pointed out. That's different. You were always so capable and independent. Because I needed to be. Because you left me with no choice. I sat down firmly on my couch. You're calling to ask me for money, right? Not for you, for your sister. She is family. So am I. Or I was, until you determined that my savings were community property for Lauren's benefit. We made an error. We now understand that. However, please do not punish Lauren for our error of judgment. I am not punishing anyone, I calmly corrected her. I'm merely refusing to save someone who took pleasure in robbing me. Those are not the same things. Abigail, Mom's voice cracked. When did you get so cold? You used to be such a sweet and caring girl. That girl discovered that being kind and compassionate got her exploited, I said, my voice gaining strength. She realized that her own relatives would betray her trust without hesitation. She realized that defending herself was the only option. I took a breath. I am not cold. I'm simply no longer willing to burn myself on fire to make others comfortable. Your father and I are striving to do better, she said, almost desperately. We've been reading books about family dynamics and partiality. We're striving to change. That's great, I said, genuinely. I sincerely hope you succeed. But your progress does not require me to give you another opportunity to hurt me. Mom began crying. Once, her cries would have shattered my heart. Now, I simply felt a distant grief. I need to go, Mom. I hope you find everything out. I genuinely do, but I can't participate in that process. I hung up and promptly blocked the number. Bennett came over that evening with Thai food and listened to the entire story. I had been concealing it from him, ashamed of my family's dysfunction, but he needed to know who he was seeing. So, they stole your money, mocked you for it, and now want you to bail them out of the consequences, he summarized. Basically, I admit it. And you feel bad for saying no? Shouldn't I? Lauren is losing her home. That's serious. Bennett placed down his pad thai and gazed at me intently. Do you know what else is serious? Family members who steal from you and show no guilt until they want something else. Abigail, your guilt is a programmed response. They taught you to feel responsible for Lauren's happiness. His statements felt like a revelation. He was correct. Every time I felt guilty, it was because I had been conditioned to put Lauren's demands ahead of my own. I'm not giving them money, I murmured aloud, testing how it felt. Good, he said, a gentle squeeze on my shoulder. You shouldn't. Even if Lauren loses the house, she is still an adult who made decisions. Adults face consequences. Something felt substantial and firm in my chest. Yeah, I said, you're correct. We finished supper and watched a movie, his arm wrapped over my shoulders, and I felt lighter than I had in months. The home went into foreclosure in July. Aunt Susan called to inform me, her voice compassionate but non-judgmental. They're moving to a one-bedroom apartment across town, she said. Brooks's parents are assisting with a deposit, but his connection with them is tense. How is Lauren handling it? I asked. About as well as one would anticipate, Aunt Susan sighed. Lots of blaming everyone else, including you. Your mother is beside herself. I'm sad she's hurting, but I'm not sorry for refusing to let this happen. Neither should you be. I told Hannah the same thing. She made her bed with years of partiality, and now she sleeps on it. People sometimes need to listen to the consequences of their actions. Do you think they will ever change? I asked. Aunt Susan was quiet for a bit. I honestly don't know. Your father seems to be trying. Your mother continues to deny her role in all of this. Lauren perceives herself as the victim. It's unclear whether any of them can actually change. I suppose time will tell. It will. But Abigail, don't wait to find out. Live your life. Be happy. You have earned it. I followed her advice. Bennett and I became more serious, discussing moving in together by fall. Work continued to go well. In July, I obtained another promotion, this time to senior analyst, leading a team of 4 junior analysts. My savings accounts reached 6 figures altogether. I began looking at condos, visualizing a place all my own. In September, almost a year after the tragic supper, I received a package. Inside was an $18,000 check and a letter from Lauren. Abigail, this is the money that Mom and Dad deducted from your account. It took me this long to save it since I worked a second job on weekends and Brooks works nights. I'm repaying you because it's the ethical thing to do, even though we severely need the money ourselves. I've been mad at you for the past year. I'm angry that you cut us off. I'm angry because you refused to aid us when we were drowning. I'm angry that you seemed to move on so simply as my life fell apart. But my therapist, yes, I am currently in treatment, helped me understand something. You did not cause my troubles. My choices did. Mom and Dad's decisions did. Taking your money was wrong, and mocking you over it was cruel. I do not expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship. I just wanted you to know that I now understand what I did to you, and I apologize. The home is gone. My marriage is barely surviving. I work 3 jobs and live in an apartment that I despise. But I am beginning to see that this is what accountability looks like. This is what happens when you spend your entire life expecting someone else to clean up your messes. I hope you are happy wherever you are. I sincerely mean it. Lauren. I looked at the check for a long time. $18,000 that obviously had to be returned because it was mine. The letter felt different from my father's. Raw, less polished, and more genuine in its sorrow. I deposited the check and responded with my own letter. Thank you, Lauren, for returning the money. I understand that wasn't simple. I'm not ready to rebuild a relationship with you, Mom or Dad. Maybe someday, but not today. The pain is too deep, and trust takes time to rebuild. But I want you to know that I do not despise you. I'm not thrilled that you're struggling. I simply cannot continue to put my own well-being at risk to prevent your struggle. I'm hoping that therapy helps. I hope you find stability. I hope you learn to stand on your own, because you are capable of so much more than what Mom and Dad enabled you to become. Take care of yourself, Abigail. I mailed it and sensed a shift. Not forgiveness, precisely, but possibly the beginning of letting go of the rage that had consumed me for the previous year. Fall arrived, bringing cooler temps and changing leaves. Bennett and I discovered a condo we loved and signed the lease in October. Aunt Susan was the only member of my family who knew the address. She understood. Your mother is constantly asking about you, she stated during one of our weekly contacts. I tell her you're doing great and leave it at that. How is she? I asked. Starting to see a therapist for herself, actually, Aunt Susan replied. Your father advocated for it. They're working on a lot of their parenting habits. That is good, I said, a small smile forming. Growth is good. Even if you never reconcile, they had to do the work. Yes, they did. Bennett and I hosted our own Thanksgiving dinner for friends. Rachel arrived with numerous coworkers, including Bennett's brother and sister-in-law. Our apartment was full of laughter and wonderful food, with people who chose to be there, rather than being compelled by blood. Midway through supper, I received a text message from an unknown number. Happy Thanksgiving, Abigail. I miss you, Dad. I showed it to Bennett. Should I reply? Do you want to? He asked. Did I? The fury had subsided over the months, replaced by something more complex, sadness over something we never had, acceptance that certain relationships couldn't be repaired, and gratitude for the family I chose over the one I was born into. I replied, Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're doing well. There was no reconciliation. It was not forgiveness. It was simply acknowledging that he existed, that I had seen his letter, and that some tiny thread still connected us, even if it would never be what it previously was. Christmas arrived softly. Bennett and I spent it alone, exchanging modest gifts and preparing an extravagant supper that neither of us had attempted before. It was serene in a way that previous holidays with my family had not been. In January, more than a year after everything went apart, I ran into my mother at a coffee shop. She appeared older, exhausted, but also more at ease. Abigail, she spoke quietly. You look great. Thanks, I said, a little stunned. You look amazing, too. Can we talk for a few minutes? Every instinct told me to say no and walk away. But something in her eyes, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before, compelled me to nod. We sat at a corner table, coffee cups between us. I am not going to ask you to return to the family, she began. I'm not going to ask for money, help with Lauren, or anything else. I just wanted to tell you that you were correct about everything. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Your father and I have been in therapy for several months. We've been looking into our routines, our favoritism, and all the ways we failed you. Her voice cracked slightly. We raised you to be independent since it was easier than dealing with Lauren's issues. We poured money at her problems rather than training her to address them for herself. And we took you for granted because you never asked for assistance. Yes, you did, I said, the words heavy. I can't undo any of it. I can't give you back the childhood you deserved or the support we should have provided. I can only apologize and say that I am trying to improve, not for me, your father, or Lauren, who is finally learning to stand on her own. Mom wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. Hoping that someday, far in the future, if you ever want to give us another chance, we'll have done the work to earn it. I studied her face for signs of manipulation or guilt. I discovered just honest regret. I appreciate it, I said carefully. But I cannot make any promises. I understand. I don't expect you to. She stood and gathered her purse. I'm glad you are doing well, Abigail. You truly deserve all of the happiness you've found. She left without asking for my phone number, where I lived, or when we would meet again. The restraint felt like respect, which she had never shown me before. I sat with my coffee for an additional hour, processing. They were changing, perhaps growing, but that didn't obligate me to be a part of their journey. March provided a surprise. Aunt Susan forwarded an invitation to Lauren's birthday party, along with a note, "I thought you should see this." There is no pressure to attend. The invitation was simple, a small gathering in her apartment. There was no mention of gifts or reconciliation, just an acknowledgement that she was turning 34 and would celebrate modestly. I didn't go, but I did send a card containing a gift certificate to a nice restaurant, a small gesture indicating that I acknowledged her existence without committing to anything more. A week later, she sent a brief and sincere thank you note, asking nothing in return. Small steps, I reasoned. Maybe someday they'll add up to something, or maybe not. In any case, I'd created a life I enjoyed, surrounded by people who valued me, and backed up by savings accounts that demonstrated my ability to protect and support myself. The story didn't have a neat, tied-up ending, as life rarely does. My parents continued their therapy. Lauren continued to work 3 jobs while rebuilding her life. I continued to date Bennett, advancing my career and caring for my chosen family. Some days I wished for what I never had, a family that prioritized me, parents who saw me as clearly as they saw my sister. Other days, I was grateful for the wake-up call that dinner provided, because in trying to take everything from me, they accidentally showed me I'd already saved the most important thing, myself. So, after hearing all this, I have to ask, what would you have done in my place? Have any of you ever had to draw such a hard line with your own family or experienced a betrayal like this? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let me know.